Good morning, dear students. We'll start with the second short story, The Old Man at the Bridge, written by Ernest Miller Hemingway, from your treasure trove. Ernest Miller Hemingway was an American novelist, short story writer, and journalist whose simple and understated writing was a strong influence on 20th century fiction. One of the shortest of Ernest Hemingway's short stories, Old Man at the Bridge, is based upon an incident that took place during the Easter Sunday stopover at the Ebro River while Hemingway was a war correspondent covering the Spanish Civil War. So it took place on Easter Sunday. Easter Sunday is the Sunday on which Jesus was resurrected. Jesus was killed by others, so he was risen to life. He was alive on that day after his death. That is called the Easter Sunday. So, on that particular day at Ebro River, this incident took place while Hemingway was a correspondent. He was a journalist, isn't it? So, he was a correspondent covering the Spanish Civil War. Spanish Civil War took place from 1936 to 1939. It was a fight between Republicans and nationalists fought within the Spanish country. Old Man at the Bridge demonstrates the power of narrative art. Hemingway takes a small, ordinary detail in a situation and, through the art of storytelling, transform it into a powerful story about the tragedy of war. So, though it is an ordinary story, a simple story, but it powerfully brings out about the tragedy of war. The old man becomes a symbol of the countless civilian victims of war. So he is not representing himself alone. So the old man stands for all the people, those who are affected by war, without politics. So he even did not belong to any political parties. Displaced, that means he had to move from one place to another, disoriented, and he did not know where to go, and alone. He was alone. He had nobody else. He is faced with inevitability of death. Inevitability means which cannot be avoided. That means sure that he had to face death. Now the story, Old Man at the Bridge, Ernest Miller Hemingway. An old man with steel-rimmed spectacles and very dusty clothes sat by the side of the road. So if they ask you to describe the man, old man, he wore a steel-rimmed spectacle and he wore dusty clothes, and he was sitting at the side of the road. There was a pontoon bridge across the river Ebro here. Okay, name of the river is Ebro. Pontoon is a floating bridge over the river. And carts, trucks, and men, women, and children were crossing it. So, who all were there found on the river or the bridge? Carts, trucks, and men and women, and children. The mule drawn carts staggered up the steep bank from the bridge with soldiers helping push against the spokes of the wheels. So, here the mule drawn carts were swaying and walking or moving forward. So it was not steady because it is a steep bank of the bridge. And what does the soldiers do? So they started pushing these spokes of the wheels in order to push them up the bank of the river. The trucks ground up and away heading out of it all, and the peasants plodded along in the ankle deep dust. So another problem there was, it was not only steep, it had ankle deep dust. So they have to be careful, otherwise they would slip off. And the trucks were also struggling and going up, then it was moving out of it. And peasants means the farmers. Farmers were plodding means travel slowly but steadily because of the ankle deep dust. But the old man sat there without moving and was too tired to go any further. So if they ask you what was the scene at the bridge, so this is what this paragraph you have to summarize and write. But this everybody was moving, but we see this old man was sitting tired at the bridge. and he was not moving further. It was my business. So my here is a soldier narrating it. So the narrator of the story is soldier. So soldier is saying that his business was to cross the bridge, explore the bridgehead beyond, and find out to what point the enemy had advanced. So he was a soldier who was kept there at the defensive post. He has to walk across the bridge and see and find out where the enemy has advanced. So that was his duty there. I did this and returned over the bridge. So he went across, he was watching all these things happening there at the bridge. Then he went forward and in order to find out whether the enemies are coming up. There were not so many cars now. So there were many earlier, but now only few cars were there and very few people on foot, very few people walking. But the old man was still there. Still, this old man didn't move. So he was watching everybody on movement and the old man did not move. Where do you come from? I asked him. So since he was not moving, he was sitting there, the soldier asked him where he had come from. From San Carlos. San Carlos is a city in California, and he said and smiled. So when he spoke about his place, there was a smile on his face because he was happy to speak about his city. That was his native town, and so it gave him pleasure to mention it, and he smiled. So, why he was smiling if they ask you a question? Because it was a native town and it gave pleasure to speak about his city. I was taking care of animals, he explained. He explained that he was taking care of animals. Oh, I said, not quite understand. He did not understand why he meant what he meant by saying I was taking care of animals. Yes, he said, I stayed, you see, taking care of animals. I was the last one to leave the town of San Carlos. So this shows that the man was not willing to move out of his place. So he was very sad to move out. That's why he was the last one to come out of that place. He did not look like a shepherd nor a herdsman. So another thing why he was asking or did not understand what he meant by I was taking care of animals is because he did not look like a shepherd. Shepherd is a person who tends the sheep, and the herdsman is the one who looks after the cattle like cows, uh, goats, etc. And I looked at his black dusty clothes. So again he's describing him. He was wearing dusty clothes and his grey dusty face and his steel rimmed spectacles under his head. What animals were they? Which were the animals that were looking after? Because he did not understand what he was. He did not look like a shepherd or a herdsman. Various animals, various many kinds of animals, he said, and shook his head. I had to leave them. He had to leave them behind. He could not bring them along with him.